We are now recording to this meeting. And this meeting, the SRT practitioners meeting, is presented by the SRA office. They want us to reach out to all the practitioners, discuss topics, introduce teachers, do a variety of opportunities just to network and get to know each other. So it's welcome you all to this meeting tonight, where I'll be talking to Paula Schroeder, who's one of our long-term teachers. And before we get into that, I just wanted to let you know that the recording that we're doing today will be available on the SRA's YouTube channel. They should have that up sometime next week. I usually get it to them Monday morning after we have these meetings. And then within a couple of days, it should be live on YouTube. And they might send out a reminder. I think they sometimes do that. If any of the teachers that we talk about or cover in these meetings that you want to have some personal time with, feel free to do that. Paula, before we get into the meditation, do you have a website that you want to share with everyone? You can type it in the chat box.
Okay, sure. It's pretty easy because it's just my name. The only tricky thing is making sure that you could spell my name.
That is tricky. Okay. Thank you very much, Paula. All right. So, as I said, today I have the privilege of talking to Paula, and I'm going to turn the time over to her right now for our opening meditation and guidance.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. And if everyone wants to close your eyes and get comfortable where you are seated, and take a couple of deep cleansing breaths. We're going to focus our energies inside, bringing attention to that feeling inside you. It might be a feeling, it could be a thought. And just notice, is it based in the past, the present, or the future? It might even help to realize what it feels like. Is it discontent, anger, unhappiness, irritation? Or maybe it's a higher vibrational feeling, an emotion like love, connectedness, freedom, happiness. Whatever it is, just place your attention there. Breathe into it. And ask Spirit to flow its consciousness, its essence, into whatever you are feeling. Continuing to breathe deeply. On each person listening, I affirm the Father and I are one, and breathe. Spirit and I are one, and breathe. I am one with universal wisdom. I am one with Spirit. We work together as a one. I ask for and accept Spirit's help now. High Self is helping me now. And so it is. Amen. Taking a couple of deep inhalations and exhalations. When you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
That was very relaxing. So one of the things I'm always interested in, whether it's a teacher or a practitioner or a student, is how did you find out about SRT? What drew you to it? And some of our stories about how we ended up with this modality is really interesting. Would you like to share a little bit about your exposure and what brought you to SRT?
Sure, yeah. Well, I started off in life with some intuitive skills that were a little bit natural. So those I was, comfortable with. But then I started getting a little bit more advanced information and things that I felt like I had a responsibility, yet I didn't know what to do with. And I had been taking some meditation classes. And in one of those, and that was designed to help improve intuitive skills. It was a clairvoyant class. And it was a 2-year program. And during that time period, I met a teacher of SRT. And, I thought it was interesting and all, but what really got me is then one of the other gals I was friends with in that class, she had a session from Jennifer, who was the teacher. And she's like, Paula, you have got to try this. It is amazing. And I always wish I could copy her accent because she's from the South. So she has like a really nice Southern drawl, and it just makes everything sound so interesting anyway. But I listened to her because she did a session for me, and I just could not believe how peaceful I felt afterwards. I really felt like a ton of bricks had been taken off of me, And so at that point, I signed up to take the basic class, and this was several years ago. So there was a prerequisite that you had to wait so much time in between taking the basic and the advanced. So I did that, but over the course of my SRT career, I ended up taking both the basic and the advanced 3 times because it was like each time I took it, I felt like I could just learn so much more. And it also helped me create a more consistent connection with Spirit. And it was not only during doing SRT, but it became a part of my life where I felt consistently connected with Spirit, which I feel like is one of the really big benefits of practicing spiritual response therapy, is that it helps you live a lifestyle that is supported by Spirit. And so at that point, I went through the different processes. Like I took the intensive skills courses, the mastery courses that are offered by the SRA, and then also some of the continuing education courses. And I know I didn't mention this the other day, but I actually have 24 different certifications in natural health and healing. And this one is my favorite. This is what I do because it aligns with who I am. And I want everybody to have that experience. So that's where my passion lies with this.
Great. And you know, I think having that personal experience with the system and how it helped improve and enhance your life helps you have that confidence, I think, too, in the system as well as what you're doing. So you've been a teacher yourself for what, over 13 years now?
Yes,
Yeah, so you've had opportunities to travel and to teach different types of people. Do you do SRT full time, or do you have another job as well?
I do SRT full time.
Great, that's what I do. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I pretty much, those last 13 years, that's been my main source of income. And I was a single parent, so to be able to, buy my own home and help raise a child on my own by having the blessing of SRT as my way of earning a living in the world also gave me a way to care for myself and my daughter through our processes.
Excellent. Yeah, that's similar for me, except it's my son. So yeah, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So what do you feel with your experiences, meeting people, traveling, and I know you've traveled several places in the United States to teach. What about those experiences did you bring, do you think helped develop your teaching style?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, some of the areas I've taught in are like North and South Carolina and Georgia, which are a little bit known for being what's called the Bible Belt, so more traditional Christian. I've also taught in Utah and Idaho, and there's a lot of folks that are Mormon. I have had a lot of clients. I haven't actually physically gone to teach a class in New York, but I had a lot of clients there over the years, and they had varied backgrounds religiously or spiritually, where some of them were Sikhs, some of them, and I really had no knowledge base of these different types of pathways to God personally. So it helped me become more curious to learn what other people had learned in their years of growing up about how to connect or reach God or spirit or the divine. Some called it nature. And so by traveling around, I got to meet people with so many differing backgrounds that it really helped me expand understanding that, yes, there's a lot of pathways to the divine, yet it's really accomplishing a similar thing. And that's our connection to our indwelling, which, the high self, and that greater power, spirit. So
Right.
I really enjoyed that aspect.
Yeah, seeing different perspectives is very illuminating, and it helps you fine tune your own sense of spirituality, I think, too, to
Mm-hmm.
to glean from all the different things we see that are good, that are out there and different. So what, as you've gone through as a practitioner yourself, as a teacher, is there any impactful experiences in your career or with SRT that you want to share with the group today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a lot. Um,
I'm sure.
in those many years, and you have that many clients, you're bound to have a few stories that you can share. But one that comes to mind is, as I mentioned, I have people of all different types of spiritual paths, and I had this lady that had gone to an event, and she had paid to be in this special program where she had a coach through the Dalai Lama, and he had, like, I guess, a special team that worked with people. And so she had gone to this event, and she told me that she was blown into oblivion, And what she meant by that is she had such a exponential spiritual expansion that she kind of lost herself. She felt like she didn't have a soul, so to speak, anymore. She really couldn't connect to herself and to her life. And little by little, like she couldn't leave the home anymore. So therefore she couldn't work. And at some point her spouse left. And so by the time she was referred to me, she had been in her home for 10 years. And her family members would bring her groceries and so on in. And so we did this clearing, and it took, I think, only 3 clearings to help clear the subconscious programming, the unconscious energies, and other things that needed to be cleared according to spirit. And she was able to get back out in the world. She eventually got a job. She put her life back together. I mean, it was totally rewarding. And I think that one gave me a lot of joy. Because her life had gone from one way of living prior to that to totally another. And so it was nice to help a person get back to life.
There's a great joy in seeing people succeed. I think
Mm-hmm.
people's success is beautiful to watch. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just a note to our listeners that we will be unmuting in certain times tonight so that you can ask questions. And I'll be doing that in just a little bit. But I had one more question before we get into our topic of discussion with Paula tonight. And that is, Paula, for those that are starting out as consultants, practitioners, maybe even thinking about being teachers, what advice would you give them for starting their SRT practice, or if they want to become a teacher?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I found so helpful with the way our materials are set up is, like, for example, I just happen to have my advanced procedures here. So what I do is I take a little highlighter and I highlight the commands in one color, like just the opening prayer, Spirit and I are one, we work together as a team. I just highlight the things that I would say if it were just going to flow real easily. And then I use another color, yellow, if it's a different, like it could be an optional thing. Like, for example, when we check if we're working with high self, if I got a different answer, then I say this thing in the yellow instead of what's in the pink. So for me, I'm super visual. So that helped me from the get-go. And I feel like that helped me develop my skills. So and it just depends on how you learn, but that's one thing. The other thing, which I know is either in the communique or the ascension, is it does tell us like what protocol or steps to follow in order to become like a certified consultant and then come to being a teacher and getting certified. So like I would like everybody that takes the classes at the beginning to know what those steps are, because that way you can follow the timeline that's outlined and there's really no regrets. Because if you become really passionate like I have, you want to do it as soon as you can. And so I think by looking at those documents and even the teachers that have taught your classes can help provide what the timeline is. And as I mentioned, the SRA has them in the different newsletters, and I found that really helpful. So That's one main thing that I would think of. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that and practicing a lot.
And well, that's what just reminds me. Robert always said, how you learn is through practicing, through doing it. So a class is beautiful, but you want to practice it, and then if you have questions, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before we get into exploring the spiritual healing principles and some information that Paula has about that, does anyone have questions for Paula that you'd like to ask her about, or any questions in general that you wanted to bring up right now? You can unmute yourself. Okay, that's fine.
What a shy group.
Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes we're like, hey, we're just enjoying the discussion, right? So if at any time you decide that you do have a question, you can always put it in the chat box, and I can prompt it when we get to the Q&A toward the end as well. So tonight I'm going to be sharing my screen with you, with the spiritual healing principles, which is handed out in the basic SRT class, and it's also often handed out in the advanced SRT class, especially if you didn't get it in your basic for whatever reason, or you need a new copy. These are some principles that guide the work, and Paula has some insights on the spiritual healing principles that she's going to share with us. And Paula, did you want me to pull that up now, or did you want to discuss a little bit first?
I mean, I can go either way, whatever you think's best for the participants. If
Well,
they need,
just keep in mind when I pull it up, that's all they're going to see, where they're not going to see faces.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I guess we could wait a minute.
Okay, then you go ahead and start your discussion.
Okay, sounds great. So the reason I wanted to talk about these spiritual healing principles is because it's so much like our everyday life. Like, many of us don't really know the science of how a light bulb works, or how an aspirin works once we take it, that type of thing. We can be like that with spiritual healing principles. And so the thing is if we take the time to learn what a spiritual healing principle is, then we have the opportunity to direct that energy. And, it's so nice. It's just a 3-page handout in our class, but it is nice because it gives us like a direction, or what some people call a true north, in order to follow. And these particular guidelines will help us, because when we consciously align with spirit, when we're saying our beginning opening prayers, and when we're doing our prep to work, and then actually moving into the clearing. And that gives us a practice of being aligned with spirit, which then again equates to being aligned to spirit in our daily living, in our life. And so I outlined some of these spiritual healing principles. And the thing that's important is, by living by these, it leads us to be more effective at doing SRT. So they affect us, whether through our thoughts, through our actions, and through our interactions. And when you do use these spiritual healing principles that the SRA has put in our classes, we can keep ourselves out of ego more easily. And it is also helpful because you can set a definitive healing intention. And with that clarity, it's like the divine spirit, the universal laws just line up to help things shift. So whether you're clearing yourself or you have a client, it really does help shift things more easily. So what I was going to do now, Kathleen, is just kind of go over some of these that are in the handouts and then talk about like how I do a clearing for myself. And then when I teach the classes also, I have the students practice what I'm going to talk about in order to help get themselves more clear as a vessel for spirit to work through.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share a document then on the screen. So everyone should be able to see the screen. It'll be the spiritual healing principles. Here we go. Okay.
So this is what the document looks like. And there's 3 pages to it. And where you see the bold print, there's we are spiritual beings expressing through a physical body. Separation from spirit is an illusion. And so basically, one way to make sure you live by this is to check and see by using a numbered fan chart, what percentage do I believe that separation from spirit is an illusion? And I can ask that question and get a percentage. So if I only believed that I was, 40%, like I only felt like I was connected to spirit 40%, well, there's a lot of room for error there in a way. And so I would just use our either advanced procedures or even the basic SRT, whichever class you've had, and follow our procedures and do a clearing so I could increase my knowledge that spirit and I are one, and that separation from spirit is an illusion. And part of the purpose of learning these spiritual healing principles is, one, to help create a way for our spiritual understanding to grow and evolve, for us to have a conscious connection with spirit, and to recognize that the greater healing is clearing soul records so that our souls are free to ascend. And, I find that in that particular thing that Robert had talked about, it's really important because sometimes we want an outcome to be a certain way. So if someone had a physical ailment or they were seriously ill, we would want them to heal. We would want the condition to be reversed sometimes. And sometimes we probably might not want the person to cross over, yet that is really between spirit and the person or the high self of that person. And so we do have to make sure, like, these are really important to read through, because we're not trying to control the outcome. We're just facilitating the best space for spirit to work in for the person. Okay. The second one, as spiritual beings, we have access to higher spiritual guidance in the form of high self. High self works with the soul to research and clear programs. And so again, I would check and make sure that my high self and my soul are in alignment in researching what spirit indicates. And I usually ask those kind of questions over a numbered fan chart. And then sometimes if I read it and I'm like, oh, I don't know exactly how to word the question, I'll just say, okay, over this part that Robert's written here, okay, Spirit, what do I need to clear to be a more effective SRT practitioner, consultant, or teacher with this? And again, I simply follow those steps that are in our procedure sheets and follow the charts with those. So, anybody have any questions with that so far? Okay.
Let me look at the chat box here, because the chat box went away when I shared the screen, but I don't see. No chats. Okay, so one thing I did want to maybe ask then is, like, if I'm working on this, Pam, Paula, so this is what I'm looking at, this article that Catherine Hamilton Cook helped put together, that if I would check and say, well, what percent do I really believe this concept? And if it's less than 100%, then there's something that I need to clear. Maybe there's no research, or maybe I need to go through more detail in the SRT procedure. That's what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And also to add to that, sometimes there may need to be things downloaded into your awareness. So on 6B, instead of it being the blocks to the positive expression, I will download the positive expression of understanding to myself. So maybe I could understand this spiritual healing principle more effectively. You also can use the outside ring of chart 8B in the same way. Like, I'm asking to download self-forgiveness because I don't stay aligned with spirit as much as I would desire to. So those also help in balancing my relationship to these spiritual healing principles. Okay. The other thing is,
sorry, I'm just getting rid of that where it said you're muted. So, okay, just let me know when you want to move to the next one.
Okay. On that last one, the one thing I wanted to say, it's really on the last couple of, it's on the top of page 2 of 3, the last few sentences. It says, if you neglect to stay clear and neutral, you may be operating from ego, which in turn may leave you open to the lower vibrational influence of discarnates and separates. So those are unseen beings that attach at different times. And the way we prevent that is making sure our ego is at 0. Or I know it between 0 and 3% is acceptable, but I always shoot for 0 if I can. So the next one, the soul is ultimately in charge of its own healing. Nothing happens that is not planned for or allowed by the soul. As divine beings creating our own reality, we cannot be victims. So the main thing about this one is to make sure we're not trying to fix someone or to be the savior or messiah. So sometimes in our charts, messiah complex or savior complex will come up because we're trying, to create a change. So the important thing is to realize that the person or the client that you're clearing that is seeking the healing, ultimately it's between their soul and their higher power or spirit. And it's also up to them to integrate that new understanding into their body and energy bodies. And then that level of healing that they're hoping for and you probably would love to help facilitate is possible. I see, let me see. Okay. So we have someone in the chat saying they're working on this as we go, which is always a great idea. So feel free anytime that I'm sharing that if you feel like you have something to clear in this, you know, either you can use your charts as we go, or you can take notes and do that afterwards too. So one of my very favorite ones is this next one. It's not what happens to you, but the energy you attach to it. This is the law of mind action. What you think and attach an energy to, you create. So this emotional energy creates our experiences in those moments. And if you have, or if and when we have an experience, it creates a trigger that might create an emotional response. So the example they're giving in this handout is the anger, fear, or hatred. That emotion is trying to draw up the experience we need to see it, and to transform it. So the thing about being aware and staying present, like how we started the meditation, focusing on our emotions and our feelings, this is partially why I had us do that at the beginning, because paying attention to what is happening inside of us is one of the keys to transforming and to utilizing the gifts of SRT, in my opinion, that so many, you know, of course, Robert and then so many other teachers have written these materials and things and assistants over the years that lead us to becoming more present to ourselves. And I love this part where it says, changing your consciousness changes your experience. And so I really encourage anyone that takes classes with me to, besides what we do in our class, to revisit these from time to time. Because as you grow and you have shifts in perception, something else will reveal itself in these spiritual healing principles. So, and another thing is, the more clear you are in aspects of your life, the more this spirit can flow energy in the situations where you're trying to be a healing, you know, a healing instrument for people. So that's one of the things that I really love about SRT. One of the next ones, as spiritual beings, we've lived thousands of lives, many on other planets and other dimensions and galaxies. The accumulated energy from these other lives can and does affect our current life. As long as we hold energy on something, we have to deal with it. So, and then I underlined this in this handout because High Self tells us that most of the clients that come to us have in their soul records the accumulated energy from tens, hundreds, or thousands of lives. And wow, when you start to think about that, even if you clear one program for someone, you have really helped open them up to be more receptive to life, to their divine, and to, you know, being able to embrace life more fully and live a fulfilled and contented life. And I mean, that's what I think is so powerful about SRT. So, and then only love has the highest outcome. Fear is a misperception that we can be separate from spirit and the highest expression of love. So I just have myself or my students check if I believe that I am the highest expression of love connected with spirit. And then again, I follow the charts and ask for those programs to be cleared. Sometimes they clear easily. Other times I have to research, or the students have to research and get all the details to help them let go. So it happens all different ways in clearing that. But again, on this one, where there's fear involved, ego sometimes can, raise up a little bit in this category. And I know on the chart where fear is all the way to the right-hand side, on chart 4, it's because the preceding programs that are listed on chart 4 all feed into fear. So there's fear in all of the previous programs. So to me, that says, even if I consciously don't think I have a lot of fear, there's probably fear somewhere that I need to clear. So I just look at little clues from these articles, from even our books from the classes. Sometimes I'll just take the soul recreation, I'll read a section, and I'll clear to make sure I'm in alignment with what was being described there. I also sometimes use the dictionary, the Spiritual Response Dictionary. I'm like a nerd, So when I want to have fun, and I have a student or two that are kind of like me, pretty nerdy about SRT, and we'll read a section and then we'll make sure we're cleared and in alignment with the teaching that has been written there. So anyway, that's partially why I wanted to talk about the spiritual healing principles, because they end up empowering you more and more. And it's a joy when you can facilitate change and healing in conjunction with spirit, of course, really doing it. But, we're that hollow piece of macaroni helping spirit to flow to people. So.
Thank you. We have time for questions for Paula. And I also wondered, because we're in a group, and group energy has so much more power to it often than a one-on-one, that maybe everyone could ask what percent do they believe everything's in divine order, and see if they get 100% or not. If they get less than 100%, perhaps the group consciousness can help you clear that without research of any kind. What do you guys want to do that? Yeah, let's get your chart out. And what percent? Because of the pandemic and other things that are going on in the world and the United States, we have a lot of challenges going on. Is everything in divine order? And as Paula was mentioning earlier, it has meaning. I get these aha moments when the blocks and interferences are to my advantage. So yeah, let's check. Is everything in, what percent do you believe that everything's in divine order, which is the last item on the spiritual healing principles. And I think that can be illuminating.
I'm laughing because I didn't touch on that one because I thought maybe I had talked too long. And then my program, I had 95% belief, and then I had escapism. So I always think spirit is so funny.
You can run, but you can't hide from your greater truth, right? From your greater good. It's just going to find you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful. Okay. Anyone have comments or want something they wanted to share with Paula? Remember to unmute yourself. Or write it in the chat box. Oh, Carrie, okay. Everyone, I see that some people got that they have 100. That's perfect. I found I had 100, but I actually check it every time I teach a class. So, yeah. Well, what percent do you believe that love has the power, the most creative energy, that it's the most powerful creative force? You know, Paula was talking about fear, and if fear is present, then love is not. So, what percent do we really believe? Yeah. Thank you, Charlene. Charlene's just really thanking you, Paula, for the company tonight and the discussion.
Oh, good. Yeah, I met Charlene early on in my journey in teaching SRT. So it's such a beautiful thing about SRT because you meet a person and then they tell a friend and then they invite someone else. And then before you know it, it's rippled to this whole group. And it's just exciting to see how everybody gets there with you.
It is. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone needing help getting to 100% on that love is the most powerful energy or creative force? Okay. I suspected you were all pretty high on that one. And when you have a group consciousness, it really helps clear things up quickly.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, if there anything else you want to add, Paula, before I do a closing meditation?
Well, I mean, the only other thing I would think of is, of course, I do the same thing that I mentioned with the dictionary and the books that Robert's written. I also sometimes will read another book, and if I feel like there's a truth in there, I know I mentioned this to you, but I've read this book, The Four Sacred Secrets, and these are a couple of teachers from India, and they talk about living in higher consciousness. And I will also do the same thing for the truths that are presented in books or written materials or emails, things like that as well. So I just find that fun. That's, a little bit more of my nerdy self, but I just think it's a great way to utilize SRT.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm from Argentina. That book is in Spanish?
This one's in English, but I can find out for you if you'd like. I can put my email in the chat and I'll try to research it and find out for you.
Okay, because the dictionary and those things in Spanish there is no here. I can understand the meeting, but my English is not so fluid, and you can realize I'm like an Indian, blah blah blah. So
yes,
I need a little help.
Yeah, yo hablo español un poquito. So,
genial.
Comprende.
Gracias.
De nada.
Go ahead and type your email in the chat box there, Paula, for everyone to have. You can also find Paula's information on the spiritualresponse.org. Remember, they changed it to .org for the main website, and that's where you'll find teachers in the United States and international. I have a copy of that book as well, and it's been newly published in English, so if it is being in other languages, English I don't think was the first language of it, but if it, but Paula was happy to check that out. Okay, so you can always email Paula and give her your email to let you know as she checks it out. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? And Alejandra, I thought your English was really well. I could understand you.
I thought so too.
All right. I'm just going to use the last few minutes of our evening together to, one, thank Paula for her generous donation of her time tonight and her skill sharing and ideas with teaching. And again, she's been teaching a very long time, and I've seen her name around, and it's given me a lot of pleasure to be able to get to know her and her teaching style a little bit more. As we close for tonight, I don't think I introduced myself, but you can see my name, Kathleen Butler, up there. I also teach SRT. Right, so go ahead and find a relaxing spot where you're sitting or laying or whatever. Just go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in and release out. Let's do another breath in and release out. And as we take a moment to be grateful for our gathering this evening, to get to know each other a little bit more, see our names, and perhaps have a connection, and to turn our minds to spirit and to ask for help. Remember, you can ask for help at any time, in any place. Just relax and let go of any concerns, because you can ask for help and receive it. Take a moment quietly in your mind to affirm that there is divine intelligence in the universe. There is an order to your learning, your growing, and your healing. As you breathe again, remember, you do not need to force your plans to happen, because you can trust the spiritual order. Everything is in divine order. And as we come to a close in our meeting, may we desire a blessing for everyone involved in our lives, including ourselves, of course, and accept divine order in our lives now, knowing everything is perfect, everything's unfolding, to trust our process, to ask for help, and to recognize our blessings. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, our high selves, for doing such a good job with Spirit, as Spirit, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just a reminder, we'll have this on YouTube. And I'm going to go ahead and discontinue the recording here.